hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, thanks.
Are we live, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Okay, hey, good morning, everyone. Today, I appreciate your attendance here. Our Oversight Committee is having a meeting today just for transparency, for public sake. Appreciate Scott Willis and Troy Patton, fellow members, being on this meeting. This is Jake Gilbert, Chair of the Oversight Committee. Today, we're going to talk about internal controls, and we have several guests with us here from the Clerk Treasurer's Office, and we would like to just, I guess, bring about some awareness to our public as to some of the things that we do to be in compliance. So first off, though, I just wanted to recognize the efforts in our Clerk Treasurer's Office and thank all of our wonderful people who work there and point out their years of service, because we're very fortunate to have such an experienced staff in that department. So Bev Rawlings has worked in the Treasurer's Office for 16 years, Carrie Gagnon for 14 years, Debbie Tolley for 12 and a half years, Misha Farrar for 11 years, Kim Strang for 7 years, and our Clerk Treasurer, Sydney Gossard, has been there the longest. She's coming up on her 20th year of service as our Clerk Treasurer, and actually was in the office as a deputy clerk since 1996. So she's been there for a long time. So we're very fortunate to have them. You're going to hear from Cindy here in just a little bit. I won't take too long here, and we'll turn it over for Cindy on some specifics. The goal of today, again, is just some transparency with the public and to express some of the internal controls we have in place to prevent fraud, theft, mismanagement, and some things like that. So I just want to talk briefly about internal controls, and then Cindy will talk about some of the processes and systems that her office uses. So first of all, when you talk about effective internal controls, they have to include some systems on your day-to-day operations and duties. There's a lot of deposits and payroll that goes on through the Clerk Treasurer's Office specifically. There has to be reliable and accountable reporting that is transparent and accurate. We have to make sure that we are compliant to all laws and obviously do the right thing at all times. So there's really 5 components that go into internal controls. One would be monitoring. We want to make sure we monitor all of our activities and that we review and we reconcile all of our accounts, but we even reconcile the risk itself to make sure that we are reducing and eliminating risk of theft and fraud. We want to make sure, obviously, all numbers match up. Info and communication, we need to provide and share all of our information to make sure things are just clearly defined. And we have to have control activities that, like I had said, mitigate risk and stop fraud. There needs to be separation of processes so that one person's not doing everything when it comes to reporting finances. We need to be able to detect and prevent anything that would be risk. We need to just make sure that we achieve clear objectives in our controls that way with our activities. We need to assess any possible changes that need to happen due to any external factors. So, for example, if in a post-COVID-19 world, if some new risk had evolved, we need to find that risk, and we need to make sure that as a city we're protected and nothing fraudulent that we're not aware of is transpiring. And then the control environment itself, there just has to be performance standards and clear ethical standards. Now, we're fortunate that our state government and local finance laws guide us on those things. And, I'm sure Cindy will talk about, but we have training and certification in all these areas to make sure we know exactly what those processes are. So again, today we're not going to get overly specific, just to ensure that we protect our people. The last thing we would want to do is say, hey, we always make a deposit at this time at this bank, so that every robber out there knows what to do. But we're going to make sure that we're clear as we need to be, to just reassure the public that, hey, we are transparent in our processes, and we have a great plan for internal controls, and that we're always evaluating going forward to find out what are other ways that we can implement to create just the best environment we can and protect taxpayers and their money. So with that, Cindy, are you on here?
I am.
I would like to introduce our clerk treasurer. Again, Cindy has served our city for about 30 years, I believe. So
It's getting close.
she can take it from here. And Cindy, we would love to just hear from you on some of the processes that the clerk treasurer's office uses regarding internal controls. Thank you.
Okay. To start with, the clerk's treasurer's office has always had internal controls, and that's what we're audited on by state board on our processes each time we're audited. We are all required, we're not invited, we are required to go to state board classes to stay to make sure we're in compliance with new legislation and accounting, and update our accounting manual. Everybody in the office is cross-trained. There's always separation of duties. Everything is always viewed by more than one or two people. I know an example, because everybody knows that about the claims. We have two ways. POs are entered by a designated department staff within the city, and they're approved by the department head. Or what usually happens is Debbie enters POs and invoices, then department heads approve, then Carrie or Misha review and post, then after posting, Carrie or Misha does the docket sheet, council approves at the council meeting, then Carrie prints checks and I review. Then they're sent out after council approval. I mean, that's on our PO, so it's like an invoices. So there's not just in here, even our bank recs, they're done by one, but they're reviewed by another, and we have to have signatures on who did the recs and who reviewed them, and it cannot be the same person. Payroll is sent over, approved by department heads. Debbie or Bev enter. Then the payroll goes to one of the clerk treasurer's staff. I approve the payroll claims. The claims are entered into NAV by one person, and money is transferred by another. So it's just nobody in here does like one process from beginning to end. And we have, in our NAV system, it will show who posted this and who posted that. I mean, just on all of them, just so it even shows in there, we can pull up who did what and what time. So there's always, we always can tell who's doing what process. So I mean, it's just how this office works. And we've had, on our audits, we've never had any issues with there not being a separation of duties, and hopefully we'll continue. That's about it.
Cindy, can you explain to everyone, you mentioned NAV. I'm not sure our listeners know what that would be. What is NAV?
Oh, NAV is our official book of record. It's a software. It's Navigator. And everything is entered into that everything that happens within the city, as far as our AR, our invoices, everything is entered into NAV. And that's what I mean. Anybody can pull it up and see who entered what, who entered, who posted it, and it's not the same person each time.
Okay. Do you, I'm sure a lot of people don't understand, say, the fullness of the audit process from the state. Could you maybe just give a little more detail? So you say we pass audits that not only are they auditing our numbers, but it sounds like they're auditing these controls themselves. Could you just give us a little more information about the audit requirements that we have passed over the years?
Well, our audits, like you said, they audit not only the finances, but they do audit our controls. And there have been a couple times that they've just asked us to have signature pages. So we have changed that, so we're in compliance with that. We were not out of compliance, but they just said it just shows we can prove it. The processes. Well, when they come in, I apologize. I had to rethink the question. When they come in, the first thing they ask us for is our annual report, which is the report that I have to put into Gateway, which is State Board or DLGF system, and they audit that to see if our annual report matches. They'll take that and match it to our NAV system to make sure everything matches. It's just they pull certain records, and actually with us, because we do payroll, they pull all of our payroll records just to check for any inconsistencies or anything that doesn't look right. And I mean, they just dwell down into everything that's done in this office. So they're pretty thorough with their audits, and like I said, we've always been really lucky, and we've always passed our audits with no problems for almost 30 years now.
Great. Now, you mentioned DLGF. I'm not sure if you had said earlier, but DLGF stands for Department of Local Government Finance, correct?
Yes, they're the ones that we submit our budget to, to be approved by them.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about, for the average citizen, so if someone's listening right now and they say, well, I want to see for myself, I want to request information or about a claim, I want to look into something. Is that possible, and how would someone normally go about doing that? Now, I understand that right now, under COVID-19 procedures, things are a little bit different in everyone's office. But in normal times, how does a person go about checking that we're doing our job?
We have information request forms online, and they just fill those out, and we provide the information. Or normally when we're here, if somebody calls and would like to come in and just look through certain records, they can do that too. Everything in the clerk's office is public record. So anybody, like I said, it's best to make an appointment, because to make sure we can get you what you need, and we can sit you in the back room and you can look through whatever it is that you want to see.
Okay, so people can physically come in there and review records right there in your office.
Absolutely.
So one thing I would like the public, I guess, to know is that I think transparency should be welcomed. I don't think anyone should ever feel shamed or feel like they're in the wrong in some way in checking us. I just think that that's how government should work, whether it's a school board, the clerk treasurer's office, the city council, or the mayor. So when we talk about the taxpayers' money and we want to be good stewards, So obviously there's all kinds of processes and internal controls that Cindy has just explained, some of the things that transpire in her office with our wonderful ladies that work there. In addition to that,
Jake, just one more thing, just so whoever may be listening, you can, every month when we close the books for the month, we put online an appropriation report, which is everything that's been posted, everything that's happened in here. We put our revenue report, so it's everything that we have received for the month. And we do our fund report, which is kind of like our bank statement in a way. They're all online. Anybody can go online and look at those at any time.
Where can they find those, Cindy?
It's on the city's website, and I believe it's under the clerk treasurer's office.
Okay.
It's under plans and reports.
Okay. So in addition to the processes of internal controls that we've talked about today, it's part of the city council's job, and specifically this oversight committee, to be another check to make sure that, again, we're doing everything we can to prevent fraud, theft, mismanagement, that we're in compliance, that our operations are great. In addition to that, any citizen off the street can come in and check for themselves. And in addition to that, we're audited by the state government. So all of these checks are there to just make sure that nothing slips through the cracks, and it's all acceptable. So if you have any questions, if you're listening and you have any questions regarding these processes, the clerk treasurer is elected, as are the city council. So feel free to reach out to myself or Cindy. And, if I don't know the answer, I will find you the answer. And you're welcome to see any information you would like. So this entire meeting was rooted in a foundation of just trust and transparency, and we'll have some more meetings down the road, but this first one was just to promote some awareness. At this time, I'd like to ask Scott or Troy if you guys have any questions for Cindy.
No, this is Scott. I don't have any.
Hey, Cindy, this is Troy. Hey, just real quick, we were talking about the controls and stuff. Just kind of curious. Do we do like test of transactions and test of controls throughout the year as well?
Yes.
And document that and all that. Just for as a CYA and make sure that everything's working the way it should.
We meet like every, I don't know, probably once a month or maybe once every 2 months, and we just kind of go over like our controls to make sure nothing is slipping through the cracks. So, we've not really documented it. If you would like it documented, we could, but we haven't, just because we do get audited by the state. So they audit that for us.
Okay, and the state doesn't require you to do it throughout the year and document it or anything?
No,
Okay. Okay.
So also one other thing too, and I just thought of, our audits are online as well. When they're finished, they go online. I believe it's on the state website. So if anybody wants to look at our audits, or they can come in here and look at them, but they are online.
Yeah, I think you guys have done a good job, frankly. These questions, they're not pointed really. So, one of the things I would, just as a comment, because as you know, the state's so far behind in auditing, that maybe if we do some kind of test of transactions or something like that we document that, so that way it's not that, I don't know, I think it's probably more just my audit background's telling me that we should do it and not wait for the state to come in, because they're 2 years behind.
Right. Now, everything is put into Gateway once a month on all of our reports and things too. So that's kind of that's another way that we look at all the information. But we can document it if you'd like us to, Troy. We just never have, but it's not a problem.
Yeah, I'm not saying you have to. It's really your call. I'm just thinking that maybe that it might be good practice, if nothing else. I mean, I know you have probably a million other things to do too. I mean, but just like in general, even in my business now, since we're audited, the SEC audits us. I mean, we document our procedures throughout the year, even if sometimes they're 3 years behind and they don't come out.
Yeah, because we're still waiting on 18 and 19 to be audited, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are behind.
Yeah, that's just my 2 cents worth. I mean, I don't, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could do that. It's not a problem, so. And then we'd have that ready when the auditors come, so.
Yeah.
Because they do ask us questions, but they can see by, like I said on the forms, like the bank recs, if Carrie does them, Misha looks them over and signs them. If Misha does them, Carrie has to look them over, or somebody, there's always somebody. So, I mean, those are documented, so we can do that
awesome.
with what we
That's
do.
good.
We can do that with the rest of it.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay.
So, some of you, this is the first year we've had a finance committee. We have had an oversight committee. I just don't believe it's met in maybe a year and a half or more, 2 years, I'm not sure. Troy and I are both new, Scott Willis as well. So we're all new to the council, but we wanted to just establish some of these things. So Troy and we are still working out some of the differences between oversight and finance, and we're still in the process of some of those things. The finance committee was certainly an initiative that this council wanted to take on, and they have been meeting and up and running. When COVID hit, we somewhat delayed this meeting, which is fine. But today, again, we just wanted to get off to a good start, and we'll have more for you moving forward. So, Cindy, any final comments from the clerk treasurer's office before we end the meeting?
I don't think so. It's just, other than anybody has any questions, I mean, they can call here and ask any of us. We can, if we don't know the answer, we can find it for you or tell you where to look for it.
Okay, well, again, we would all just like to thank you and Bev and Carrie and Debbie and Misha and Kim for all your hard work and everything you do. And thanks for those of you who tuned in to listen today. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks.